Welcome to the Brain Warriors Way podcast. I'm Dr. Daniel Amen.
And I'm Tana Amen. Here we teach you how to win the fight for your brain to defeat anxiety, depression, memory loss, ADHD, and addictions.
The Brain Warriors Way podcast is brought to you by Amen Clinics, where we've transformed lives for 3 decades using brain SPECT imaging to better target treatment and natural ways to heal the brain. For more information, visit amenclinics.com.
The Brain Warriors Way podcast is also brought to you by BrainMD, where we produce the highest quality nutraceutical products to support the health of your brain and body. For more information, visit brainmdhealth.com. Welcome to the Brain Warriors Way podcast.
So welcome. We have a very special guest today, Dr. Steven Masley, who is a physician, chef, nutritionist, and a best-selling author and public television personality who has just recorded his 3rd national public television special, The Better Brain Solution, and he has a book coming out with that same title. We're really excited to talk to Steven and about how to make health delicious.
Yes,
and
welcome.
so I love this combination of chef and physician and nutritionist. So welcome to the Brain Warriors
It's like
Way
the best
podcast.
of both of us. That's fantastic.
And I'm delighted to be here with both of you.
So how did you get excited about putting these 3 specialties together? I mean, both, so you're like Tana and I mixed into one, although not quite as cute as Tana.
Well, it's a matter of opinion.
Yeah. Well, I started, maybe as a regular physician. My challenge was I really wanted to keep people out of the hospital and prevent problems. And that was my goal from the beginning. And I was one of the first physicians in the country to do group visits.
Wow.
Where I would see 20 people at a time for diabetes or heart disease, depression. And what I learned from them was they didn't just need detailed information. They kept saying, well, why don't you just give me some recipes? And I'll cook whatever, if it's easy to prepare and I can find the ingredients in my grocery store and it's delicious, that's all we'll cook.
I love that.
And so
yeah,
I took that seriously. So, here I'm a physician doing research studies with group visits. And I decided I had to go back to chef school. I catered dinners in college to pay for some bills.
That's
awesome. I like cooking. But, the idea of going to chef school to improve my recipes and it took a year. As I kept working, I did every other weekend and like 3 to 4 evenings every night for a year.
That's
my family
fantastic.
was so supportive.
That is fantastic. I love that. We found something very similar. So as we started to really implement this idea of functional medicine, of, getting people healthy with lifestyle, the recipes were the thing that was really driving it. People needed simple ways to do it. And so I'm like, how did I get stuck in this writing cookbooks thing forever? So, especially for somebody who couldn't cook. But I have to hand it to you because I don't know a lot of doctors who will take the time to do that. So, we make the perfect sort of team because I do that. But that's amazing that you took the time to do that and you realize the power of food,
So we should start with food is medicine or food is poison. And the health of our country is going the wrong way. It's sort of the whole idea behind the Brain Warriors Way podcast. The real weapons of mass destruction are highly processed, pesticide-sprayed, high glycemic, low-fiber, food-like substances stored in plastic containers. And we see the massive rise in obesity, in diabetes, in hypertension, in depression and dementia. And I think both you and I believe 50% of that has got to be food related. And so getting your food right is absolutely critical.
Well, especially when you start throwing in pesticides and toxins and glycosides. It's more than for the brain. The brain is so sensitive that it is like the canary in the coal mine. That's what goes first. And when all these processed foods, I think it's 60 to 80% of all memory loss and dementia is probably related to some combo of the wrong food instead of the right food, the wrong nutrients, and then you add toxins on top of it, like that come from food or from our environment. It's pretty amazing. I think we could actually get rid of at least 60% of memory loss and cognitive decline with just changing the food we eat, and maybe up to 80 to 90% when we looked at a whole holistic pattern to go with it.
That's pretty amazing. That's actually amazing.
In November, I have a new book called Memory Rescue coming out, and it's the same idea. It's like, how do you prevent Alzheimer's disease or even get it back if you're headed to the dark place? It's you prevent or attack all of the risk factors that steal your mind. And I came up with a mnemonic called Bright Minds to help you remember the 11 major risk factors. But the T in Bright Minds is toxins. The D is diabesity. And it's just so important to have a simple solution, because so many people are like, oh, I don't know what to do. I get conflicting advice. So in your experience, Steven, what are the important things for people to do to have a better brain?
Well, and I love the way you said that, because we've got to make it easy or it's not going to happen. So I think of like 5 steps, 5 simple, easy to follow steps of give people the right foods to add, the essential nutrients they shouldn't miss. There's activities like moving the body is so important for the brain. I think we underestimate that. Managing our stress and avoiding toxins. And that if we do those 5 things right, and I think our challenge is to make them easy so as people can follow it, that would have a tremendous impact on. And my data from my clinic is not only do we prevent memory loss, but people's executive brain function, their processing speed. It's like, how fast does their brain computer work? And the average person in a randomized controlled study improved by 25%. So I know not only can we help delay memory loss or prevent it, we can improve your function today so you're sharper, quicker, and more productive.
So I have a question. I know the 3 of us think very differently, obviously. I mean, we really think that lifestyle matters, food matters. I mean, obviously, the work we do is very different than I think the average medical people. But I have a question, because this week, I dealt with 2 people. One had Crohn's and one is getting gastric bypass. And I asked them, so what did your doctor say? I'm not a physician, so I want to make sure I'm sticking within my scope of practice. What did your physician tell you about food? What did they tell you about nutrition? Absolutely nothing. Now, how does that make sense for someone with Crohn's or someone getting gastric bypass? They just gave them medicine and said not one word about nutrition. Or
because
changing.
They have no training in this.
But that's a travesty.
School,
you get that that's a travesty.
Thousands and thousands of hours of education. I had 16 hours on nutrition. So what probably causes 50% or more of the illnesses that we all see in our practices, we get very little training, and doctors don't do what they're not trained to do.
Well, the one with Crohn's actually went on to say that the doctor said nutrition played a very small role, and that it was going to be the immunosuppressant medication that was going to be the important piece. And they removed a large section of bowel. Now, how is this okay? Because what is bad for your gut, what is bad for your heart is bad for your brain, right? I mean, come on. I
completely agree with you. But that's just a sad, our standard American system today is focused on diagnosing and treating a disease with either pills, pharmaceuticals, or a procedure. So but that doesn't mean the population is limited to that. I think the 3 of us are trying to be warriors.
Right, you have to be your own best advocate, correct?
Yes.
So we have to just retrain people.
Listening to the Brain Warriors Way podcast, odds are they want a different way. So tell us about the kinds of patients you see in your clinic in Florida.
I see people who are just trying to improve their health. We do optimal health assessments. So we measure over 100 markers of aging, plaque growth, cognitive brain function, hormones, laboratories, bone densities. It's really a holistic assessment combined with very detailed nutrition, fitness, and stress management assessments.
So is it fair to say you're a functional physician? You're anti-aging?
I've been involved with functional medicine since its inception, I think. I missed the first meeting, but
that's awesome.
That was like 23 years ago. I think I've been involved intimately with it for at least 22 of the 23 years of its
Okay, so Dr. Masley is in Florida. I get people all the time asking me for referrals to people who, are in functional medicine. So just FYI. Very important to know.
St. Petersburg, Florida. We're actually thinking of a clinic next year in Miami, so we'll be closer. But St. Petersburg is just such a beautiful area. When is your new book, The Better Brain Solution, coming out?
It comes out January 2nd.
January 2nd. So new year, new you.
New year, new brain.
Perfect.
Right.
New brain.
Like
and what we have both seen, us with our imaging work, is you're not stuck with the brain you have. You can make it better. And since it uses 20 to 30% of the calories you consume, what you feed it really does matter. And as a functional medicine doctor, all of us have learned about leaky gut. Not many people know about leaky brain. That if your gut is not healthy, it actually begins to open up some of the connections in your blood vessels that will allow toxins into your brain. Do you talk about that at all?
I do, because, especially the whole concept of this gut-brain connection is so well established. I think it's beyond any refutable doubt at this point, that your gut communicates with your brain communicates with your gut. And probiotic of the 10 top foods I would ask someone to add every day, probiotic foods are going to have to be a strong part of that. And so is fiber to feed those healthy bacteria, those trillions of bacteria in our gut. So they are into, our gut helps us remove toxins.
Yep.
It processes and improves our vitamin levels. It causes or can remove inflammation. It's just an essential part. And the communication, the whole immune system, a huge part of our immune system that impacts our brain, as you know, is in our gut. So I think and leaky gut, you just get so many toxins floating into your system.
Yep.
And the inflammatory and oxidation from that's amazing.
So for people who don't know, when you say probiotic foods, what are your favorite ones?
Sauerkraut, is a really easy thing. If you're dairy intolerant, then I don't have yogurt or kefir. But if you can tolerate, I'm okay with those people who tolerate dairy. I'd let them have yogurt, organic yogurt or kefir. But kombucha or miso, those are all great sources.
About kimchi.
But I'm also probably going to give.
I like kimchi.
It's terrible.
No, I like it. You just don't like me after I eat it.
The principle I always go on with is there should be no suffering.
So I have to add
So Brain MD, our supplement company, actually makes pro-brain biotics that has been shown in studies to help support mood and anxiety levels. I really like sauerkraut, but this is a really important point. Tana likes kimchi.
Right.
It's an amazing probiotic food.
Right.
I hate it, so I'm not going to make myself suffer.
I want to add
I'm going to find something that I really like that fits me, and if I don't like it, like a lot of people just don't like fish, but the omega-3 fatty acids from fish are really important. And so taking them as a high-quality supplement can be really helpful too.
So I want to add something, because you made a good point, because we have a lot of people that we deal with that are dairy intolerant, and the casein's not great for the brain and all that good stuff. So, but I discovered something really cool. So sheep's milk yogurt doesn't seem to affect some people the same way that cow's milk yogurt does in some cases. But even for some people, that doesn't work well. But I discovered something really cool: how to make your own coconut milk yogurt. So you can use coconut milk and you can put a probiotic in it. I'm curious what you both think about this. If you put a high quality probiotic supplement into the coconut milk, and then you strain it and you let it sit for a while in your refrigerator, it actually becomes a really cool coconut milk yogurt, and it doesn't have all the added sugars and chemicals. And
see, I think that's terrific. That any of those
it tastes great.
options are great.
Sheep's
And
milk?
if you don't
get
like
sheep's
these
milk?
foods, then please take a probiotic. I mean, that's
Right.
as a supplement. And people think, oh, they're billions. It's not that. When you think of how many trillions are in our gut, 25 billion to me is just kind of a nice simple dose. I wish, if you're not used to eating probiotics every day and eating 10 servings of fruit and vegetables every day, then I'd like people to start adding a probiotic to their system. It's one of my top 10 foods that I think we need to have every day.
Right.
So either it's a probiotic food or a probiotic supplement.
Right. And a fun thing like the coconut milk yogurt I just talked about, making your own, it actually tastes great. You can put it in other things and, do your homemade granola, grainless granola that we, I'm sure you know of a grainless granola you make at home, and you put some coconut milk yogurt in it with your probiotics. It's awesome.
So it's very important, because a lot of people say yogurt and health, and I want to make sure you read the label, because most of the yogurt sold in stores, even healthy stores, is loaded with sugar.
Or aspartame.
And so
Yes.
when I eat organic.
More sugar than an ice cream.
Right, or they've got
Sweetened
aspartame, which
yogurt.
is as bad
Yeah.
or worse.
So
The
so
sweetened
the
yogurt
trick
has more sugar than ice cream. It's like insane. Who
Right.
would? I mean, someone's trying to get a healthy food and they get totally deceived with it. It's really, that's
Right.
awful.
But sugar-free is
So
not
the
better.
trick is get organic, plain yogurt, and what I'll often do is put frozen blueberries
And a
in
little
it,
stevia.
maybe a little stevia or erythritol, and mix it up. Tastes great for you. Read the label. Read the label.
And berries are definitely on my top 10 food
Yeah.
list. I mean, those pigments are so important for your brain. I want people to have either a cup of berries or cherries every day. You can put them in a smoothie. You could put them with coconut yogurt. You could have them just by themselves.
Right, and they're low glycemic, so it's good. Yeah.
I actually have a cup
That's
of
a
blueberries.
big myth that they have sugar. I mean, they really, the glycemic load on cherries and blueberries is like 4. I mean,
Much lower than other fruit. So agree.
Than dates.
Dates are terrible. Yeah.
Okay, so we have probiotics and we have berries. What are other brain foods?
Well, I put number 1 is vegetables. I saw some really green leafy vegetables by themselves. If you have a cup of green leafies every day versus someone who doesn't, your brain is 11 years younger.
Yeah. And you're happier. New study says you're happier. The more veggies you eat, the happier you are.
11 years. I mean, that's amazing. And I love also beets, because I think the big beet pigments, beets have this myth of being high sugar load, but their glycemic load is like 5. They're really quite low. So beets and berries, but green leafies are just, they have so much fiber, vitamin K, potassium. They're loaded with nutrients. So vegetables, I'd probably put number 1, and we need to at least 5 cups a day.
Right, and beets help increase blood flow as well.
That's why I like them.
Yeah,
so I know
I
if
know.
you serve me beets, you're in the mood for love.
Okay. Anyways, this is a G-rated show, for PG-13. But I like my green drinks, and I put a half a beet in there. So I don't put too many beets, because I want to keep the sugar low. But I do want a half of a beet or 1 beet in my green drink for the juice. It's really good. Tastes great.
You beet.
And then
Okay,
there's
we
a
have
lot of
beets,
healthy
we
fats
have-
out there that are really good for your brain. So vegetables, way up there, berries, definitely probiotic. But of the healthy fats, the omega-3, long chain omega-3 from seafood,
Right.
whether it's seaweed or oysters,
Right.
clams, or
Love seaweed.
from salmon, any of wild salmon, any of those. So our brain is 40% long chain omega-3 by weight. We need it to nourish it.
Right.
But nuts have gotten for years a bad rap. And all the data, and especially this new Mediterranean diet study, showed that if you eat extra nuts every day, you have less cognitive decline and improved brain function.
So which nuts
We're
do
with
you like?
My favorite 6: almonds, pecans, walnuts, pistachios, hazelnuts, and macadamias. Those are my favorite.
Yay, those
6.
are mine too. Yep.
Okay.
So what do you
Macadamia
think
nut oil.
about-
We use macadamia
What do you think
nut
about
oil.
cashews?
I'm fine with cashews, but I've never seen the kind of clinical data
They
from
just
using
taste good.
cashews I've seen from the other nuts.
But they taste good.
They
But
do
the
taste
macadamia
good.
nuts, they got a bad rap for so long, but macadamia nut oil for cooking is great. It has a really high smoke point.
Well, I
Yeah,
think
so-
it's the
does.
calories in macadamia nuts. They're just loaded.
Right, but they also have omega
calories.
9s, which is a little different. So it's really good. They're different.
Yes.
So they're good. So
But the actual studies, when they've looked at nuts for weight loss, showed people if they ate 1 to 2 ounces, not a whole can,
right.
but
You have to
1
watch.
or 2 ounces a day, they lost weight
Yep.
because they were full and satisfied.
They're
So it's
satisfied.
like-
They're satisfying.
But
it's
you
a
know, one
great
of the
snack
tricks I
before dinner.
found
Yeah,
is
agreed.
you have to, when it says 1 ounce, you need to weigh that.
Right.
You need to measure
Well,
it, because if you
I
just
do
go
one
and
handful.
right, but the problem is it tastes so good that many people go, "Oh, this is good for me," so they end up with 6.
Yeah, don't lie to
handfuls.
yourself.
Okay.
We and
But
my
there's this thing called calorie amnesia that people.
So I just
Well,
suggest to
2
people
handfuls
actually get
definitely is associated with better brain health, better heart health, and weight loss. But there is a limit. Yeah, I
Right.
mean,
So
you
I
can't
just tell
overdo
people-
almost anything.
right. So I tell people get them out and then put them away, because if you don't put them away, you're going to keep eating them. They tend to taste really good.
And avocado would be another awesome fat. We should have like a half of avocado every day. And that's become my favorite go-to cooking oil.
Yeah,
is avocado
I like it
oil.
too.
The
Why?
smoke point is like
Yep.
520 degrees. It's delicious.
I
It's got
agree.
a nice flavor.
It tastes great, right?
And it's very neutral. It goes with many dishes. And if you want something to have like olive oil flavor, you can cook initially with the avocado oil, turn it to simmer,
Right.
and then at the very end, drizzle on a little
I
bit of
like
extra
that. That's
virgin
good. We're
olive
going to
oil.
be friends. I like this because I like avocado oil too, and I tell people they can use olive oil at low temperatures but not high. So
Yes.
that's a good trick. I like that.
Yes.
It's a very good trick.
Okay, so we have
omega-3
oils.
seafood, nuts, olive oil. Yes, so
Yeah.
extra virgin olive oils. I mean, the Mediterranean diets, I think that was like a slam dunk finally, that when we look at adding extra virgin olive oil, extra couple tablespoons a day, even though it had calories, they clearly had better cognitive performance
Yeah.
than the low-fat eaters, and they had less cognitive decline than the low-fat eaters. So
And we've got this whole crew of the medical community coming back out now and doing the whole no fat is bad again. What's going on with that? I'm so confused. So they're starting to come back with, nope, you got to decrease your fat. I'm so confused by that.
Well, the American Heart Association actually changed their position, I think it was last year, on fat and eating cholesterol. So we know, I mean, cholesterol over 220, 230 is not really good for you. But cholesterol under 160 is associated with homicide, suicide, death from all causes.
Yeah, 'cause your
And I'm
hormones
seeing
are
that more
out
and
of whack.
more, especially in the vegans that I treat, and they're rabid about not having any animal products, but their total cholesterol. I saw somebody recently; it was 113, and
But depressed and anxious.
I just worry
Yes.
about the no fat, low fat.
But their hormones are out of whack.
message.
Well,
What's your thought
they
on
get
that,
depressed and it throws their hormones out of whack. I
Right.
totally agree with Tana there. If you don't have fat, your food, you don't have texture to your food. It's depressing eating. And if you don't have fat for your brain, you get depressed because your brain doesn't have any. Your brain, it doesn't want to shrink. It needs fat to maintain itself. So we need healthy fats. And I think there are smart fats out there, and we need more. I think the science is so solid for it there now, but remember, it takes 10 to 20 years for the medical community to make a shift.
Right.
And we're only about 5 to 10 years into this shift away from low fat to, we're not saying eat any fat. No one's saying eating more trans fat. Thank
Right. No one's
goodness.
right. Exactly. There are some fats that are clearly bad. So industrial raised animals, clearly that
Yes.
fat is much worse for you. That's not great fat. Those saturated fats are significantly worse than animals that are naturally raised, grass fed, free range. And yeah, that should be more limited than some of the other fats. So
Right.
trans
So we're
fats are
shifting
terrible.
towards smart fats, but it's going to take another 10 to 15 years to get the medical community on board because they're
Excellent.
usually that far behind.
Excellent.
So what do you eat every day?
Well, a couple days a week, I start my morning fasting. I've, added some partial intermittent fasting for a couple days a week, 2-3 days a week. And on the days I do have breakfast, during the week, it's usually a shake.
Yeah.
Almond milk, a protein powder, 20 grams of protein. I usually do cherries or blueberries and a little handhold of green. And I push blend, and in 2 minutes, I am out the door
That's
with
like
my breakfast.
that's identical to us. That's like seriously almost identical.
So
that's awesome.
And then what about the rest of the day?
Lunch is usually soup. I make a soup of the week. All the leftover vegetables and I throw in beans and so yeah, it's a soup of the week or a salad usually, and then I usually have a carrot or an apple I bring with me, or a cucumber, so some vegetable fruit. I get home, I have some nuts as my snack before dinner, and then dinner is some form of clean protein. I love something grass-fed, organically raised, not something from a feedlot.
Right.
Or wild fish like salmon or something like that, with at least a double portion of vegetables. And we don't really have much rice or bread
either.
That's like an anniversary celebration. I might have something like that.
Interesting.
Yeah, we do 95-5. We have a 95-5 rule.
Dark chocolate.
Yeah.
For dessert.
We actually make something called Brain and Love and Brain on Joy, which are two. One, it's sort of like a Hershey bar, but it's sugar-free, dairy-free, and has 9 grams of fiber. Brain on Joy is like an Almond Joy, except no sugar, no dairy, and it tastes awesome. So we're huge fans of chocolate. But let's get into some of the controversial stuff, like caffeine and alcohol.
Okay, so
I'd love your thoughts on that.
I think there's a J-shaped curve here. And there's some people who can't control themselves and they really just shouldn't touch it. So if you could really have 1 cup of coffee or maybe 2 cups of matcha tea, I'm totally okay with that. But some people they can't stop at that little bit, or they get that pigment and benefit. They overdo it and they clearly cause harm. But I've probably outlined at least 6 studies that if you're having a moderate portion of tea or caffeine, that there's good benefit, that there's benefit to the brain. And if you do more, then it's harmful. It's like crazy. And I would say the same thing of the alcohol. The only benefit I could find was specifically associated with red wine. And it was really modest portions. It's not like more is better. So of the controversy, and I realize there's many people who the idea of having 1 glass of wine with dinner is just impossible. They're gonna never be able to do that. So I'm okay with those 2 groups, provided it's at a very small serving per day, and definitely not more. So
when I rehabilitate brains, and I do that all the time, caffeine constricts blood flow to the brain. And we actually don't let people have caffeine the day of their scans, because the scans we do, the SPEC studies, are blood flow studies, and caffeine can constrict blood flow up to 30% in the brain. Now, I'm with you. If somebody has a cup or 2 of coffee a day, it's probably not going to hurt them. But when they're at 4, 5, 6, and one Starbucks venti is 3. So
yes, exactly.
In fact, it's 6. If you think of a cup of coffee at 6 ounces, isn't there small 12 ounces? I have to look at that.
Yeah.
But the venti is 330 milligrams of caffeine. And that's the American Psychiatric Association actually says that's an addiction level. So just one of those. So the cup size matters. And then alcohol, there's a study from Johns Hopkins that say people who drink every day have smaller brains. And I always say when it comes to the brain, size matters. It's the only organ in your body where size really does matter. You don't want a smaller brain. So, I mean, if you have 2 glasses of wine a week, it's not a big problem. If you have 2 glasses of wine a day, it's a big problem. At least from what we've seen on the imaging work we do.
But I would say the hard liquor and beer there was I could find no benefit even in small quantities for hard liquor and beer.
Yeah, that's sort of what we found is that, and we would agree with you that the problem is most people, they sort of fudge on how much they're actually drinking. And they just
forget.
can't. Well, and they just can't. Most people can't just have that one. There are some people, a small percentage of the population that can have a small amount and they don't need more, or they don't want more because they don't like being out of control. But for whatever reason, that's not the majority of people. So if you're one of those people, then you probably shouldn't, do it because it's not good for your brain.
And I would actually say in your population, when you're dealing with someone with an injured brain, is not the same as these global studies I'm looking at from Australia or France or the Netherlands, where they're looking at healthy people and who have healthy habits.
We're talking about people who it's like I don't know if you want to call it genetic, but it's like through your family, your heritage, like there's been problems. So it's probably best to just avoid the whole thing.
But one of the kickers for me, the New York Post had this headline, "Cancer, it's your fault." And what they found was 70 to 90% of cancers were environmentally driven, and alcohol directly increases the risk of 7 different cancers. And so I'm just thinking to myself, decreased judgment, more domestic violence, more car accidents, now cancer, less is probably better.
Less is better.
At least for the population we see. So what are your favorite stories from the Better Brain Solution or the patients that you see in your Florida clinic? Because ultimately that's what people remember.
Well, I commonly have people come in, like I had a woman recently who came in from New York who had brain fog. She couldn't remember where she put stuff. She was foggy. She'd been on all these series of strict diets, all these intense exercise routines. She couldn't lose weight. And when I actually measured her blood sugar, she had elevated blood sugar, the number one strongest predictor of cognitive decline and memory loss. So even though she was dieting and working out like a fiend, and I think they put her on she had been through several low-fat diets, it wasn't working for her and she couldn't think right. And when I just said, try this, add these 10 foods, meet these nutrient needs, be active, but I don't want you killing yourself 2-3 hours a day and being all stressed over it.
Right.
Within a week or two, she was startled and her brain fog started to lift and go away. And she felt so much better. Within a month, her blood sugar was normal. Within 2 months, she had lost 8 pounds and never gained it back. And her cognitive performance on our cognitive tests we do improved by about 60%. But she feels so much better. It's the quality of life difference that's better than any of her blood sugar or cognitive testing numbers. She's fantastic. And that's a common theme, that when you give someone the right food, nutrients, activity, help them manage their stress, take out a few toxins, you do those 5 simple steps like we offer with our program. And it's amazing the results. We know you can shrink artery plaque. And now we know that you can improve your brain function, not only try to prevent memory loss, but improve the brain you got.
Yep.
And that's what I love about the work you two are doing too, is it's about a better brain. It's not just delaying it's not just fighting Alzheimer's disease. It's giving someone a better brain immediately.
Yeah, we have a kinship for sure. Yeah, this is good.
Yes, and that's the exciting thing about the brain. It continues to make new neurons, especially in a part of the brain called the hippocampus, which is Greek for seahorse. So the hippocampus makes up to 700 new cells every day. So I think of your brain's producing these little baby seahorses, and your behavior is either increasing that number or decreasing it. It's increasing the health of the babies, or it's murdering them, in essence. So your behavior matters in such a huge way. Any final thoughts before we have to wrap up?
Well, my biggest one was, I think most people procrastinate. They're waiting for something, it's like they're waiting for a heart attack to change. Okay, they waited too long. They're waiting for a stroke to change. Okay, that was way too long. But especially for your brain, don't wait until you notice cognitive decline, because by that point, by the time you're forgetful, you have to reread, a paragraph in a book. You can't find your keys. You're in trouble finding your car in the parking lot. By that point, your brain has shrunk. It's really hard to reverse it. It's so much easier to prevent that and to stay sharp. So my pitch to all of your listeners would be, I think the three of us are very much on the same page. We want people to have a wonderful, glorious life, eat fantastic food, but don't wait. Start right now. Make your brain better.
Yes.
And that's my really message to people is take action, get started today with the foods we've talked about, the steps we've mentioned. That's really the solution to a better brain.
Agree.
Great.
That's awesome.
Well, thanks so much for joining us on the Brain Warriors Way podcast, Dr. Steven Masley.
Yes, wonderful.
The Better Brain Solution coming January 2nd. In March, he'll have a national public television special to support the book. Thanks so much, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Brain Warriors Way podcast. Go to iTunes and leave a review, and you'll automatically be entered into a drawing to get a free signed copy of the Brain Warriors Way and the Brain Warriors Way cookbook we give away every month.